when you start having your shit together, when you have money, when your life is working, when you have the right mindset, when everything goes your way and you start to operate and live your life in a way that is like working, when everything is working and you finally figured it out and everything just kind of fits into place, the people around you don't have it figured out and they're confused, they're not aligned. So this is like one of the most difficult parts about being a successful entrepreneur is not being around the right people, being around the people who are at a similar level, who are maybe at a higher level and can lift you up. It's kind of just being immersed in the status quo, and that what that does is it like wears down your consciousness, it wears down your mind. One of the most difficult parts about that is the fact that like the people that you interact with every day, if you have employees or you have contractors, you have people that you work with, they just don't think or operate on your level. It becomes exhausting to even communicate with them because they have no idea how to just make things happen. They have no idea how to think for themselves. They're not proactive. They don't have the ability to just, use common sense and do things like, I had to stop this video to answer a call from a contractor who's like, where do you want me to set this door? I don't know, dude. Set it wherever the hell you want it to be. You got to come back tomorrow and work on it. You need to call me, waste my time to figure out where to set a piece of material. These are the types of things like just use your common sense, use your brain. And so most people are so confused and so lost and so unable to think for themselves that they defer their thinking, they defer their self-determinism, their will, their personal experience of life to other people. And so this is part of the programming. So we've talked about this programming where you go to school, what's happening in school, you're being programmed to be a slave, you're being programmed to be a worker bee, to basically just be at the effect of everyone else and to listen to what you're told, do what you're told, right? Now, I mean, we need education. You have to learn how to read and write and some, the basic stuff in general. But the whole purpose of like a public school, for example, is to teach you how to be a slave, to teach you, sure, sometimes they teach critical thinking. You have to like have some competencies, but like, the ultimate framework or like the mental frame that you're in is that you are sitting down and being affected by whatever is happening, right? So you're being affected by information, you're being indoctrinated, you have, information, whatever, you're, flowing at you, and you're just sitting there at effect to whatever is happening, and then you're tested and quizzed on it. We have this phenomenon in society where people just have no ability to think for themselves. They have very little critical thinking skills, and people wonder why they struggle, why they're depressed. Well, there's many layers to this. Well, there's levels of warfare that we're dealing with. Biological and the crops and the chemicals and all the things that are slowing us and dumbing us down. Part of it might be intentional. Part of it may just be fallout from a bunch of idiots running the world. If you guys ever watch that movie Idiocracy, it's kind of like that. Just, people get dumber and dumber over time, and then there's nobody left to actually run things and make things work. So it's a funny movie. But so this is what we're talking about, where you're a competent person, your intelligence, you have a higher level of intelligence than people around you because you're busy operating at a higher level, you're dealing with bigger problems, you're dealing with bigger things, you're taking care of more, you have a higher level of responsibility. That's when, you need to level up your peer group. You need to make sure that you're part of masterminds, you get around the right people, that you have the right coaches, you have the right mentors, you're talking to the right people, you're not hanging around or spending time with people who are wearing down your consciousness because your consciousness is already under attack all day, every day by the low vibration consciousness that pervades reality. And so, and this is kind of just a metaphor, right? So if you feel like you're alone in the fight, you're alone in the battle, in one sense it's true. In another sense, there's plenty of people who are experiencing it the same way. So you have to get around other entrepreneurs, other, intelligent people who are spiritual or maybe at church. People who think differently than, the low consciousness programmed masses. And you have to recognize that this is happening all the time, is that we are being programmed all the time, the masses are being programmed all the time, and make sure that you resist that programming. Because what happens is you get sucked into these systems, beliefs, systems of thought, systems of indoctrination, systems of thinking, ideologies, all these things that are sold or pushed upon the masses for some particular reason, and this is what wears down your consciousness. This is what wears down the realness of your being. This is what wears down your soul. This is a spiritual warfare on you as a intellectual, individual, spiritual being. So, and then we have the collective consciousness where, you're called here to be broken out of that collective consciousness and to have a higher level of understanding, a higher level of consciousness, and then go out and affect the consciousness of the masses. Because as part of the war, part of this, the real war that's occurring is the indoctrination and the slavery, the mental slavery, the slavery of consciousness, the lowering of consciousness, the lowering of the mental ability and awareness. And so to help other people break out of the programming, the masses are hypnotized. Everybody is hypnotized. They're asleep. People are just perpetually asleep, indoctrinated and programmed by whatever it is that they're being sold or they're consuming on their little boxes. That's primarily it. But, pop culture, social media, back in the day, the programming was done by the media and it was very strict control. Now it's targeted programming because, based on whatever the algorithm likes, whatever thought frame or thought forms that you're buying into at the moment, the algorithm's going to serve it up and even more stronger on you. And so whatever you believe, whatever your beliefs are, the indoctrination is you're just indoctrinating yourself even more deeply in the system. And so if you want to be free, if you want to be a happy, healthy, spiritual being, a true human, you're not a transhumanist experiment, you're not an AI globalist, then you have to break out of that lower level consciousness. You have to discover what's real for yourself. You have to discover what it means to be a human, to have a connection to God and to be spiritual. And you have to discover for yourself what it means to defend the truth, to discover the truth, to have an awareness, a higher consciousness of the truth and what it means to be an awakened, enlightened spiritual being, to access Christ consciousness, to know Jesus and the Christ consciousness and our highest divine potential as a human being amongst all this insanity and low consciousness and demonic energy. This is what's happening, and your freedom and your future depends on you winning that war.